Every day, people try to control you through words, actions, or even subtle energy. They provoke you, frustrate you, and test your patience. Most fall into the trap. They react, they argue, they give away their power. But what if I told you that the strongest weapon you can possess is not strength, money, or influence, but your mind? Today, I'm going to teach you the unshakable mindset, the way to remain calm, untouched, and completely in control, no matter who tries to bother you. This isn't theory. This is strategy, and once you master it, no one can ever take your peace from you. True power is never measured by the force of your words, the size of your army, or the wealth you accumulate. Power is measured by your ability to remain calm when others seek to provoke you, when chaos erupts around you, or when someone tries to manipulate your emotions for their gain. Every person who attempts to unsettle you is, in essence, offering you a choice. To give them your anger, your frustration, your reaction, or to deny them the satisfaction. Those who are easily angered are weak, because they allow external circumstances and other people's behavior to dictate their inner state. The unshakable mind recognizes that emotions, particularly anger, are a form of currency, and giving them away is like handing your opponent your most valuable asset. Mastery over your emotional state is the single most potent form of power, because it cannot be stolen, taken, or destroyed by anyone else. Emotional control is not about suppressing feelings or pretending you do not experience them. It is about understanding the mechanics of your own mind. Anger, annoyance, and irritation are natural reactions, but they are not commands. You can feel them, observe them, and then choose your response. The moment you let someone else's words or actions dictate your reactions, you are no longer in control. You are a puppet, dancing to the strings pulled by whoever seeks to unsettle you. The unshakable mind breaks those strings. It creates an internal space where no external force can reach, where calm is instinctive and clarity is automatic. Consider the way people around you often behave. Many are masters of provocation, though they rarely recognize it themselves. A casual insult, a condescending tone, or a careless remark can trigger emotional responses in those who are untrained. Those who lack discipline in their emotional life react with defensive words, harsh actions, or impulsive decisions. Every reaction reveals weakness and offers leverage to others. Emotional control is the difference between being a player in the world and being played. The more you can maintain calm in the face of provocation, the more difficult it becomes for anyone to manipulate you, influence your decisions, or unsettle your confidence. Mastery over emotion also amplifies your influence. When others see you remain composed in situations that would cause them to lash out, they unconsciously respect and fear you. Calm is magnetic, and composure is authority. People are drawn to those who never lose control because such individuals project competence, intelligence, and unshakable stability. Anger often blinds people. It clouds judgment, distorts perception, and invites mistakes. The person who controls anger is free to act strategically, to calculate outcomes with precision, and to respond in ways that increase their advantage. This is why rulers, leaders, and successful strategists have always cultivated emotional discipline as their primary weapon. Emotional control also creates psychological leverage. When you remain unmoved by attempts to provoke, you frustrate your opponent without lifting a finger. They expend energy trying to unsettle you, often without realizing that the more they push, the stronger your calm appears. Anger is contagious, and those who seek to incite it around you feed off reaction. Denying them that reaction turns the game against them. You become the silent force, the immovable presence in a world of chaos and agitation. Every conflict, every insult, every attempt to manipulate becomes irrelevant because your mind is fortified. Finally, emotional control is the foundation for every other aspect of power. Without it, intelligence, strategy, and influence are wasted. Decisions made in anger are often destructive. Words spoken in frustration are rarely forgiven, and opportunities missed in emotional turbulence are never regained. By mastering your own mind, you ensure that every action you take is deliberate. Every word you speak is precise, and every challenge you face is neutralized before it can threaten you. Power begins within, and the first step toward unshakable strength is the absolute control over your own emotions. One of the greatest advantages a person can have in life is the ability to anticipate human behavior. People are far more predictable than they appear, driven by desires, fears, and ego. Every insult, manipulation, or provocation comes from a place of personal need or insecurity. Those who understand this do not react impulsively, but rather observe and calculate. When you see the predictable patterns in human behavior, you gain power not by controlling them, but by controlling your own responses. The unshakable mind recognizes that most attempts to provoke anger, frustration, or fear are not personal attacks. They are predictable outcomes of the other person's nature, and therefore can be anticipated and neutralized before they affect you. Every individual acts according to incentives, whether those incentives are conscious or hidden. Some seek validation, some seek dominance, some act out of jealousy or fear. When you begin to notice these patterns, the world transforms from chaos to a game of probabilities. The unshakable mind does not waste energy reacting emotionally. It calculates, predicts, and positions itself to remain untouched. The insult designed to break you, the criticism meant to unsettle you, the passive-aggressive comment meant to provoke you, all of these lose their power the moment you understand their source and predict their purpose. Reacting emotionally is a form of ignorance. Understanding is the ultimate strategy. Consider how people behave under pressure. Most act out of fear, anger, or desire for self-preservation. They lash out when they feel threatened. They manipulate when they feel powerless. And they flatter when they desire gain. If you wait for these behaviors to occur and respond in panic or frustration, you are a slave to their impulses. If you anticipate them, you become a master of the situation. When you recognize that an attack is predictable, you no longer see it as an insult, but as a signal, an indicator of intent and weakness. This knowledge allows you to choose your response with precision and purpose. Predictability is not a matter of guessing, but of observation. Pay attention to patterns, past behaviors, and tendencies. Most people reveal their nature through repetition, habit, and consistency. Once you learn to read these signals, you are no longer caught off guard. A colleague's subtle undermining, a friend's passive hostility, or a stranger's calculated insult all become transparent. You begin to respond not with emotion, but with strategy, neutralizing potential threats before they manifest. The unshakable mind moves like water around obstacles, never confronting chaos head-on unless it is necessary and advantageous. This understanding also breeds detachment. When you know that people will act predictably according to their desires and fears, you no longer internalize their actions. Their provocations are no longer personal attacks but rehearsed plays in a script written by their character. The unshakable mind treats every conflict as a predictable event, stripping it of emotional charge. By expecting certain behaviors, you remove surprise. And by removing surprise, you remove the ability for anyone to unsettle you. Calm becomes automatic, because you understand that anger, irritation, and frustration are responses you are free to withhold. Knowing that people are predictable allows you to influence them subtly. By anticipating reactions, you can steer outcomes without confrontation, without visible force, and without emotional compromise. The unshakable mind does not seek to control others openly. It controls the flow of events by positioning itself ahead of the predictable curve. This foresight turns chaos into opportunity, provocation into advantage, and confrontation into a stage where you are always prepared, always composed, and always in command. Observation, anticipation, and strategy are the tools of the unshakable mind. Predictability is not a weakness of human nature. It is an advantage for those who study it, master it, and use it to maintain serenity. Once you see the patterns, once you understand the triggers, no person can disturb your calm, and no circumstance can dictate your reaction. Your mind becomes a fortress because you act in accordance with knowledge rather than impulse, seeing every human interaction as a puzzle to navigate, not a threat to endure. Most people live their lives chained to the opinions of others. They measure their worth by praise and criticism, by acceptance and rejection, and by the approval or disapproval of those around them. This is the path to constant frustration, anger, and insecurity, because human opinions are fickle, inconsistent, and often malicious. The unshakable mind understands that allowing others to dictate your sense of self or your emotional state is surrendering power. Detachment from opinion is not arrogance, nor is it indifference. It is strategy. It is the realization that no external voice has authority over your inner peace unless you permit it. Humans are naturally judgmental, and those who seek to provoke or manipulate you will exploit this tendency. A careless remark, an insult disguised as humor, or a criticism aimed to wound can only succeed if you internalize it. The moment you stop giving weight to what others think, their attempts to control, shame, or belittle you collapse into insignificance. Detachment is the invisible armor that shields you from manipulation. It creates an internal world where your stability is sovereign and untouchable, regardless of the chaos or negativity surrounding you. Opinions are often projections of the observer's own fears, desires, and limitations. People judge not to enlighten, but to assert dominance, seek validation, or deflect attention from their own insecurities. By understanding this, the unshakable mind sees that criticism is rarely about truth and almost never about justice. It is about the other person's psychology, not yours. Once you internalize this, the sting of judgment diminishes. You recognize that the world's opinions are reflections of the speaker, not assessments of your value or competence. Detachment does not mean isolation or disengagement from society. It means freedom from the chains of validation. It allows you to interact with others without emotional compromise, to navigate social landscapes without being ensnared by manipulation, and to pursue goals unburdened by the fear of ridicule or disapproval. When you detach from the weight of opinion, your decisions become based on logic, strategy, and your own priorities rather than emotional reactions to external judgment. This is a rare form of power because most people are enslaved by the constant need for approval, and those who are not are instantly elevated above them. Silence and restraint are critical tools in this process. Responding to every criticism, defending yourself against every judgment, or explaining your choices only grants others influence over your emotions. By remaining detached, you withhold the reaction they seek. You create ambiguity, patience, and calm, forcing others to confront their own frustration while your mind remains untouched. Every word, every glance, and every action becomes deliberate because it emerges from strategy, not from a need to satisfy or correct opinion. Detachment also fosters clarity. When you are no longer preoccupied with pleasing others, you can focus on what truly matters: your growth, your goals, and your strategy. Decisions become sharper, interactions become more effective, and your energy is no longer wasted on emotional turmoil created by the judgments of those who seek to provoke. The unshakable mind prioritizes mastery over self rather than the impossible task of mastering the perceptions of others. Moreover, detachment cultivates fear and respect in others. When they realize that their words and judgments cannot influence you, they lose leverage and must engage with you on your terms. You become a silent authority, a presence that cannot be manipulated or People instinctively recognize the strength it takes to remain unaffected by opinion, and this recognition amplifies your influence, rather than diminishing it. Ultimately, freedom from opinion is not merely a state of mind, it is a weapon. It allows you to operate with precision, to act without emotional compromise, and to maintain stability regardless of external turbulence. The more you detach from the judgments of others, the more your power consolidates, and the more unshakable your mind becomes. Every criticism, insult, or attempt to provoke becomes irrelevant, because you have withdrawn the power it seeks to exploit, rendering you untouchable in thought, emotion, and action. Freedom is often misunderstood as the ability to act without restraint or to follow one's desires unchecked. In truth, freedom begins in the mind, in the deliberate mastery of one's thoughts and reactions. To be free is not to live at the mercy of circumstance or the whims of others, but to act deliberately, with clarity, and without surrendering power to external forces. The unshakable mind understands that control over oneself is the ultimate path to liberation. Every reaction, every thought, and every decision that is surrendered to chaos, provocation, or manipulation diminishes freedom. By reframing your mindset to equate control with freedom, you reclaim authority over your life and your destiny. Most people live in reaction rather than strategy. A careless remark, an unjust criticism, or a subtle insult triggers an immediate emotional response, creating a chain reaction that compromises judgment, wastes energy, and erodes power. The unshakable mind recognizes that these responses are voluntary, and that the moment of choice exists between stimulus and reaction. By taking control of this moment, you transform potential weakness into strength. Freedom is not merely the absence of external constraints. It is the presence of internal mastery. The more control you exercise over your mind and emotions, the less anyone can dictate your experience or influence your actions. Control also redefines perception. A mind trained to remain composed in adversity sees challenges as tools rather than obstacles. Provocations become opportunities to demonstrate strength. Manipulations become signals to adjust strategy, and conflict becomes a field in which you operate deliberately rather than reactively. When you control your perception, you are no longer subject to the distortions of fear, anger, or frustration. Instead, clarity emerges, allowing you to act with precision. To control your mind is to control the interpretation of the world around you, and in doing so, you achieve freedom from the unpredictability and volatility of external forces. The equation is simple, yet profound. Control equals freedom. The less your emotions and thoughts are hijacked by the actions of others, the more you are free to choose your path. Those who surrender their minds to provocation or to the judgments of others are slaves in subtle but devastating ways. They are constrained by emotional impulses, limited by fear of opinion, and bound by the expectations and manipulations of those around them. The unshakable mind recognizes these chains and refuses to wear them, achieving liberation through deliberate control is cultivated through awareness, discipline, and practice. The first step is to recognize triggers and observe the arising of emotions without immediate engagement. Anger, irritation, or fear is acknowledged but not acted upon. Then, the second step is deliberate choice. To respond strategically or to withhold reaction entirely. Each act of self-mastery strengthens the mind's resilience, creating a mental environment where freedom is the default state. Over time, the mind becomes an unshakable fortress, immune to provocation and impervious to manipulation, where freedom is no longer dependent on circumstances, but on internal sovereignty. Furthermore, this mindset allows for strategic engagement with the world. When you control your thoughts and emotions, you can act with deliberate force when necessary, or remain silent when advantageous. Every decision is no longer clouded by impulsivity, but guided by calculation and foresight. Others may attempt to unsettle or distract you, but their efforts fail because the unshakable mind remains anchored in discipline and purpose. Control does not mean inaction. It means mastery over the timing, manner, and impact of every action, resulting in the highest form of freedom. The ability to act without interference from chaos, emotion, or manipulation. Control is also the source of resilience. Life will inevitably present challenges, adversaries, and provocations. Those who lack control are swept away, reacting in ways that compromise power and opportunity. Those who master themselves navigate the same situations with calm and foresight, converting potential threats into advantages. The more control you exercise, the freer you are to pursue goals, shape outcomes, and maintain peace of mind. By reframing your mindset to see control as freedom, you dissolve fear, neutralize anger, and achieve unshakable stability, creating a life where no circumstance or person can dictate your internal state or limit your potential. Words are one of the most powerful tools a person possesses, but in the wrong hands, they become liabilities. Most people speak impulsively, revealing their thoughts, emotions, and weaknesses without strategy. Silence, however, is a weapon far more potent than speech because it conceals intention, frustrates those who seek leverage, and signals strength without aggression. The unshakable mind understands that speaking less often allows one to control more, and that the fewer words given, the less ammunition is available to those who would manipulate, provoke, or judge. Every reaction spoken aloud is an opportunity for another to gain influence over your mind. An angry retort, a defensive explanation, or a hurried justification grants visibility into your vulnerabilities. Those who thrive on provoking others understand that words reveal more than actions ever can. By speaking less and observing more, you deny your adversaries the chance to read your emotions or anticipate your strategy. Silence is a fortress, and those who master it operate from a position of undisputed control. The unshakable mind recognizes that restraint in speech, creates a psychological advantage that cannot be replicated by force or intellect alone. Silence also confuses and disarms others. When someone attempts to provoke a reaction and receives none, they are forced to confront their own failure to manipulate. Their energy, which would otherwise be used to disturb you, is redirected into frustration and self-reflection, while your mind remains untouched. In this way, silence acts offensively as much as defensively. It is a subtle form of power that amplifies authority because it projects confidence, self-possession, and mastery. The unshakable mind understands that saying nothing often carries more weight than speaking loudly, for restraint signals that one is in control of both circumstance and self. Moreover, silence prevents unnecessary conflict. Many disputes are born not from the actions of others, but from the impulsive responses they provoke. Words spoken in haste or anger escalate situations, providing fodder for manipulation, resentment, or further provocation. By choosing to remain silent, the unshakable mind avoids becoming entangled in trivial battles that serve no strategic purpose. Silence is not avoidance. It is selective engagement, choosing when, where, and how to act in a way that maximizes influence while minimizing vulnerability. Strategically, silence also commands attention. When words are rare and deliberate, they carry weight and authority. People instinctively listen more closely when they know that speech is intentional and meaningful. The unshakable mind uses this principle to direct perception. By speaking less, one amplifies the impact of each word, shaping outcomes and guiding interactions without overexposure or unnecessary emotional expenditure. This is the difference between those who dominate conversation and those who are dominated by it. Silence is also an instrument of observation. By withholding words, one gains the ability to analyze behavior, intentions, and strategy of others. The unshakable mind watches, listens, and gathers intelligence without revealing its own position. Knowledge is power, and silence allows the accumulation of insight while maintaining a protected stance. Those who speak impulsively may reveal intentions before fully understanding the situation, whereas the silent strategist retains the advantage of foresight. Finally, silence cultivates inner strength. The more you resist the compulsion to react verbally, the stronger your mental discipline becomes. Each moment of restraint reinforces the ability to remain calm, composed, and in control. Over time, this discipline solidifies into unshakable confidence, creating a presence that commands respect and fear without aggression. The unshakable mind wields silence like a blade, invisible, precise, and devastatingly effective. It is a weapon that shields against manipulation, amplifies influence, and ensures that no one can disrupt your peace, control your narrative, or unsettle your mind. True unshakable strength does not appear spontaneously. It is deliberately forged through habits, routines, and the constant cultivation of mental resilience. The mind, like a fortress, requires construction, reinforcement, and maintenance. Those who neglect it are vulnerable to the whims of circumstance, the provocations of others, and the chaos of life. The unshakable mind understands that every habit, thought, pattern, and practice contributes to the strength of the internal fortress, and that deliberate cultivation of these habits is not optional, but essential for mastery over self and environment. Habits are the scaffolding of mental fortitude. Daily practices of reflection, meditation, or disciplined thought create walls that are impervious to external agitation. Each moment of conscious control, each refusal to be provoked, and each choice to observe rather than react, acts as a reinforcement of the mind's defenses. Over time, these repeated actions create a state of automatic resilience, where once a word, action, or event would trigger frustration or anger, now it is absorbed, analyzed, and neutralized. The unshakable mind does not depend on external calm but generates it internally. Using habits as the bricks of a fortress no one can penetrate. Observation is another critical component of inner fortress cultivation. By studying yourself and others consistently, you gain insight into patterns, triggers, and vulnerabilities. The unshakable mind treats every experience as both a lesson and a test. Provocations are analyzed, emotional impulses are examined, and responses are refined. Over time, this observation trains the mind to anticipate rather than react, to calculate rather than explode, and to remain unshaken regardless of circumstance. Habits of reflection turn experience into wisdom, and wisdom into stability, creating an internal environment that is as impervious to manipulation as stone walls are to arrows. Routine also plays a pivotal role. Discipline in daily life translates into discipline of thought. Those who cultivate consistent routines, whether in study, exercise, meditation, or mental exercise, develop an internal rhythm that resists disruption. The unshakable mind recognizes that chaos outside must never dictate disorder within. By structuring time and thought, by embedding resilience into the very rhythm of existence, you create a predictable, controlled internal landscape that serves as a foundation for unassailable calm. Habits are not merely mechanical. They are strategic tools designed to solidify power over self. Mental reinforcement through intentional exposure is equally important. Challenges, provocations, and stressful situations are not threats to be avoided, but exercises for strengthening the fortress. The unshakable mind treats adversity as training, using it to test the walls, identify weaknesses, and improve defenses. Each encounter that would have previously caused disturbance now becomes an opportunity to reinforce calm, to expand tolerance, and to deepen mastery over thought and emotion. Habits that incorporate such training transform potential weakness into impenetrable strength. Additionally, self-awareness is a cornerstone of these habits. Regular evaluation of one's thoughts, reactions, and decisions allows the unshakable mind to correct errors before they manifest as vulnerability. By observing impulses without immediate engagement, and by adjusting behaviors through deliberate practice, one constructs an internal system that is both self-correcting and self-reinforcing. This self-awareness ensures that habits are not hollow routines, but active instruments of control, shaping the mind into a fortress that cannot be breached by trivialities or provocations. Finally, cultivating an inner fortress is a lifelong endeavor. Strength, calm, and resilience are not granted. They are earned through persistent, deliberate effort. Every day offers a choice to reinforce the walls through reflection, discipline, and observation, or to allow cracks to form through neglect, impulsivity, and reaction. The unshakable mind chooses the former, understanding that true power resides not in external control but in the mastery of oneself. Through consistent practice, deliberate habits, and unwavering commitment to internal stability, the mind becomes a fortress strong, silent, and unassailable, impervious to the provocations of others, the turbulence of life, and the shifting whims of circumstance. The world will always seek to disturb, provoke, and challenge you. People will test your patience, attempt to manipulate your emotions, and try to wrest control over your mind. But power does not lie in confrontation or reaction, it lies in mastery of oneself. By controlling your emotions, anticipating human behavior, detaching from opinion, reframing your mindset, wielding silence, and cultivating fortress-like habits, you build a mind that cannot be shaken. The unshakable mind is a fortress no external force can breach, a presence that commands respect without aggression, and a power that operates silently yet decisively. Those who master themselves are free from the influence of others, impervious to manipulation, and always in control. True strength, true freedom, and true authority begin within. Guard it, cultivate it, and no one will ever disturb your peace again.